Jó napot kívánok, Pap Júlia vagyok. Köszönöm szépen azt, hogy részt vettek ezen a konferencián. Témám jellegéből adódóan az előadást angol nyelven fogom megtartani. Today I will be talking about cognitive linguistic methods in ESL vocabulary teaching. More specifically, I will be presenting my own case study of teaching phrasal verbs with cognitive linguistic methods. Cognitive linguistics is a well-established field of study that emerged with scholars such as George Lakoff, Mark Johnson, Ronald Langaker, and Leonard Talmy. A cognitive linguistics approach is characterized by viewing language as a type of cognitive process, rather than asserting a separate language faculty in the brain. Researchers in the field have proposed numerous theories. In the early 2000s, cognitively inspired practical applications to second language acquisition theories and the teaching of English as a second language began to be proposed. These approaches claim that with the help of cognitive linguistic theory, linguistic structures which were previously thought to be arbitrary can become analyzable and thus easier to acquire. I have chosen to focus on phrasal verbs for my study because there is both anecdotal evidence and literature that suggests that they are notoriously difficult for second language learners, and because the teaching of multi-word units such as phrasal verbs have recently come to the forefront of English language methodology. First, let's look at what is a phrasal verb and a phrasal prepositional verb. Let's take look out as an example. Phrasal verbs consist of a base verb and a particle. The base verb in this case is out, look, and the particle is out. The core meaning of the base verb often refers to some kind of physical movement, and the particle often suggests some kind of orientation. Phrasal prepositional verbs contain additional prepositions such as look out for. The grouping of phrasal verbs and phrasal prepositional verbs together is also supported by the fact that phrasal verbs and phrasal prepositional verbs are similar in register distribution, common domains, and tone. This study utilized an influential cognitive linguistic theory, conceptual metaphor theory, which has been introduced by George Lakoff and Mark Johnson and has been developed by Zoltán Kövecses. Proponents of the theory claim that metaphors are not merely artistic tools, but also cognitive tools, and for this reason they are pervasive in everyday language. The reason for this, in their view, is that metaphors are not merely used for their aesthetic value. They claim that abstract concepts are often understood in terms of something more concrete, thus creating a metaphorical link between the abstract and the concrete concept. By analyzing these emerging conceptual metaphors, important assertions can be made about the conceptual system of the individuals who use them. Let us consider the following examples. Firstly, we have the phrasal verb to throw out. This is a very concrete phrasal verb. Its base verb denotes a physical activity and its particle indicates the direction of that activity. Now, what do we make of something more abstract, for example, to wipe out? The particle once again suggests an orientation, but it can only be understood metaphorically. Wipe out can be understood to mean to remove something from a container, when we take the state of existence as the metaphorical container. In summary, to wipe something out is to move something out from the state of existence in a metaphorical manner. The analysis of phrasal verbs in this manner enables us to engage with their meaning on a deeper level, which is called deep processing. It has been claimed that this cognitive activity is particularly effective for vocabulary acquisition and retention. The hypothesis of this study is that by facilitating this process, we can support students in their vocabulary acquisition. Research in cognitive linguistics has highlighted that individuals differ in their ability to understand and produce metaphor. Nonetheless, this ability is important as non-native speakers utilize a smaller number of metaphors, and proficiency in metaphorical language can help bring one closer to advanced language use. Previous studies produced promising but inconclusive results, especially regarding younger learners, which highlight the need for a new study to explore these questions. Previous studies have often demonstrated the superiority of the group taught with cognitive linguistic methods as opposed to the groups taught with traditional methods, but they often achieve this result by taking partially correct test results into account. My quasi-experimental case study's novelty lay in its application of the most recent guidelines suggested by literature, such as the use of visual aids and the complete omission of technical language. The study sought to address two research questions. Firstly, how can effective cognitive linguistic tasks be designed and administered? And secondly, how effective are these tasks in comparison to more traditional methods? The study involved 14 students in 9th grade at a Budapest school. They were all on upper intermediate level of English. Due to the limited number of research subjects, I modified the design of previous experiments. Instead of dividing my students into a control group and an experimental group, I created 2 lessons for the same class. The first lesson used the traditional approach, while the second lesson incorporated cognitive linguistic methodology. To this end, I developed 2 sets of phrasal verbs. I ensured maximum similarity between these 2 sets with the help of corpus linguistic tools. For the traditional lessons, I organized the phrasal verb set thematically, which is a well-known traditional method for teaching phrasal verbs. While for the cognitive phrasal verb set, I organized it according to particle, which is the metaphorical part of each phrasal verbs, as I have previously demonstrated. The 4 sources of the data for the experiment included lesson observation, the results of the pre-test and the delayed post-test, the drawings made by students, and the analysis of pre-test errors. I developed a pre and a post-test for the experiment. The pre-test involved translation from English to Hungarian, while the post-test was a fill-in-the-gaps exercise. And you can see the lesson plans for both the traditional and the cognitive lesson. The visual aids used by the experiment were influenced by those of Brigida Ruska-Austin, who has written the only phrasal verb textbooks aimed at learners employing cognitive linguistic methodology. As demonstrated in the example, her highly schematic figures represent the metaphorical movement of the particle by the small black trajectory against the background of the larger white landmark. In creating my own visual aids, I aimed to make them more comprehensible by reducing their abstract nature. Nevertheless, I have included the red trajectory and the blue landmark in these images. In the following slides, I will be presenting my results. Initial expressions were gathered by lesson observation data. Students found the approach engaging, but the novelty of the approach was not entirely clear, which could have been because of the omission of technical language. This could have led to the illusion of stagnation by making students feel that they were learning something that was already known to them. In the cognitive lesson, students were tasked with drawing their own illustrations for phrasal verbs to promote the formation of mental imagery. Here are some of the results. I requested that they indicate a landmark and the trajectory with colors, but most of them has failed to do so. However, almost all of the drawings included a clear landmark and a clear trajectory. It is noteworthy that the majority of the drawings were even more detailed than the provided examples, which highlight the need for more detailed visual aids for this age group. The analysis of the resulting illustrations also revealed that the distinction between a more conventional image representing a phrasal verb and one that explicitly conveys its metaphorical nature was not fully understood by all participants. Similar pretest results suggest that the 2 phrasal verb sets were almost equal in difficulty. I then compared the improvement in the ratio of good results between pretest and posttest for both the traditional and the cognitive lesson. Scores improved by 136% after the traditional lesson and 138% on the cognitive lesson. Errors in the pretest were also analyzed as they carried important implications for metaphorical competence. As you can see, mere translating the word into Hungarian was the most prevalent strategy. The erroneous answers have also demonstrated traces of metaphorical competence. 2 answers for the phrasal verb to grow apart from exemplify this. One response to grow over somebody to become wiser and more mature than them suggests that the conceptual metaphor of growing beyond someone in wisdom and maturity is linked to physical growth. Another response to grow out of someone creates a metaphorical link between growing out old clothing and the friendship becoming more distant. Both these errors suggest that students have already possessed some degree of metaphorical competence prior to the experiment that can be built on cognitively inspired classroom activities. In conclusion, the study demonstrated that cognitive linguistic methods can be as effective as traditional methods. This suggests that they can be used to broaden our methodological horizons to introduce greater variety into our lessons. The results of the pretest were more favorable than previous ones because partially correct responses were not taken into account to demonstrate the superiority of the cognitive linguistic lesson. But it also highlighted some problems for the age group, such as visual aids, time for consolidation, and the lack of technical language. The experiment gives rise to numerous questions that could be explored in a longitudinal study. A longitudinal study could collect data on the effects of cognitive linguistic methods on long-term retention, student motivation, and potential improvement in metaphorical competence. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and here are my bibliography.